has gone according to plan. We should be live on YouTube. Hello everyone, and welcome back. 2 weeks in a runner, 2 weeks in a row. I know, what an amazing achievement that is. Anyway, I feel kind of like I'm cheating you guys out of content by making another video about it. It's not even a video, a live stream about this, but like so much has happened since that announcement that Sony is discontinuing the basically physical discs in general, and I feel there's still so much that can be said about it that I decided to just do a full week to a runner about it. Also, super sorry if there's a lot of noise in this video, if you can hear all of the fans going off, but it's very hot in the UK today, so yeah, sorry about that. Actually no, I'm not sorry. I don't care if you can hear it or not. I need to be able to actually breathe in here and not boil alive in this like 25-degree weather. Anyway, so if you haven't been caught up yet, but I highly doubt there's anyone left on the internet who hasn't really seen this whole saga already. Basically, Sony announced that they will end all physical disc production in January of 2028. Now, apart from just the whole, it's nice to have something on the shelf. It's nice to have a game you can just plop on your shelf and you can look at it, right? And the fact that it's just nice to have a disc you can touch and feel and put into your console or whatever, right? For the exact same reasons that vinyls and cassettes and music CDs are popping up. And that's like a whole other thing, really. That's just kind of a whole other topic, that the fact they're doing this while physical media is experiencing the biggest comeback ever right now. But that's a whole other topic. Apart from that, obviously the biggest issues that I don't think even have to be said is just around content ownership. When everything is digital, well, they can just remove access to it. Or if you lose your account, if you lose access to your account, if your account gets banned, all your purchases are gone. And if for whatever reason a game is pulled, well, again, you don't get no refund, no nothing. Sony, even before this happened, they've been on blast for pulling a bunch of, I believe, like movies and TV shows that people have already paid for, and again, no refund, no anything, not even warning that's been happening beforehand. So obviously that's one of the big reasons why it's a joke. Another thing that is interesting is just the fact that, how do I even say it? The timing of it is very interesting, because obviously it feels in a way like they've been trying to feel the situation out by obviously they've been collaborating a lot with Rockstar and with promoting GTA 6. They've been trying to feel the situation out. At least that's how I've been reading it, seeing how people are going to react to GTA 6 being digital only on console, and then seeing how people react to that. At least that's kind of my conspiracy theory. And obviously people have reacted as badly as you can imagine. People have been kind of calling on Sony to like do anything about this decision. They just been Sony took like a 6-day break from posting anything, and in every single tweet I see them posting so far, and they haven't like addressed this whole thing at all. They just went back to tweeting like nothing has happened. Every single tweet, people are still kind of up in arms about it. So that's a good sign about it. If they are actually going to reverse this decision, who knows? I've seen some reports with analysis that like they don't care, even if they lost like millions in revenue from people canceling their subscriptions to like PlayStation Plus or whatever. Like it's not going to matter, and that they have apparently already been repurposing one of the factories that they've been using for creation of optical media into something else. Now, granted, if you want to look at this very charitably, right, they've been repurposing that optical media factory, and even in the title right here, I removed it on the screen, but if you go back to this article, it says physical disc production. I mean, if you want to be very charitable, it could be that they're moving to a different format. They could be moving to cartridges, like what Nintendo did with the Switch. I highly doubt that. It's being very charitable, and if they did have something like that planned, then it would have probably announced it when the controversy was really at its peak. So the fact they haven't very undermines that whole theory. I highly doubt it gonna be just introducing a new format, because again they would have very much said something about it. And one thing that's also been very promising is how many developers are also coming out in support of this, even from PlayStation's own first-party studios. That's been also really, really good to see. Apparently, like, they've all been blindsided by this, or retailers have been blindsided by this. Everyone has been pretty much blindsided by his decision, which makes it even more bizarre. So I want to hear like your thoughts. Like, are they going to do anything? Are they going to respond? Are they going to respond in any way to this backlash? Because right now, like, they just been sticking their fingers in their ears, pretending nothing's going on, but they have to. Like, at some point they have to, and the more they stay silent, the worse it becomes for the brand as a whole. Like I kind of mentioned in my video about it though, a large part of that is like the people you see up in arms about it. Like, there are people that may probably follow through, but then there's just this whole larger silent majority that have been buying digital, that will continue to buy digital because they just kind of wanna, they have the magic box that they play the Call of Duties and the FIFAs on, and that's it. And they don't care about game preservation, they don't care about the long-term consequences of this growing digital trend in media, they don't care about this issue at all, and it's going to continue buying the CODs, the FIFAs, the GTAs and whatnot. You know the kind of customer I'm talking about, right? I don't want to use the word normie because that word has been so overplayed, but that's kind of what I'm aiming at basically. So I think you also have to imagine that those are the primary customers, and as much as we may be up in arms about it, those are still the people who make PlayStation a very resilient to these kind of situations. That makes them a very resilient company, and for that reason alone, I'm very, very skeptical about them really having to address this further. What makes it very interesting is that there have been some movements about it. So Brazil, of all countries, has been now kind of talking about it. One of the lawmakers, inspired by Stop Killing Games, that whole initiative, which has sadly kind of also experienced some setbacks, both in the US and also in the EU actually, which is kind of surprising. I mean, the EU has been so pro-consumer in recent years. They've been doing so much for that recently, like making that all things have to have reusable batteries, and what's forcing Nintendo to now make reusable battery, like replaceable battery variants of the Switch 2 in Europe. That whole thing as well. They've been generally very, very pro-consumer, but the fact that even they kind of buckled under pressure of, I mean, which just kind of mostly looks like the lobby of guys like Ubisoft, which obviously have a lot of say in the European scene, being a European company. But instead we have Brazil. Now, the thing about this kind of thing, where one region in the world does something, a lot of the company just basically adapts the rules to every single place on earth, because they don't have to deal with the headaches of having, do one thing in one place, another thing in another place. When the EU forced Apple to have the USB-C on an iPhone, they didn't just like stick to Lightning on the American models. They just went Type-C everywhere, right? There are some caveats to that trend, obviously. Like I just said, the Switch 2 replaceable battery version, I believe, is EU exclusive right now, or maybe just like Europe exclusive. I highly doubt they're gonna still sell the non-replaceable one in places like the UK. That would be way too much of a hassle. But as far as I'm aware, and someone correct me on that if I'm wrong, they will still just be selling the non-replaceable ones in the US. Maybe long term they'll be doing some kind of migration as to basically, again, avoid the headaches of having two separate models. But maybe right now, I think it's just the non-replaceable ones there. But still, for the most part, if a big kind of shift in policy and legislation happens in one region of the world, companies just don't want to avoid the headaches of having different systems for different parts. And in Brazil, they have been launching initiatives about it. Now, that is still very early. They're still like basically draft bills. But if they pass, what would Sony's reaction even be to that? It would be so hilarious if Brazil, of all places, have all of a sudden like better consumer protection laws when it comes to game ownership than the EU, which again has been kind of the leader in setting the standard in that regard, which has also been why it's been so disappointing that they kind of buckled in terms of game ownership. But are they going to then do the same everywhere? Or are they just going to have the very special system for Brazil and Brazil only? Like, how married are they to this concept? That is my question. So basically, this is kind of what this legislation has as its kind of goal. The bill stipulates that the publishers must clearly inform customers about the game's reliance on online service at the point of sale. Furthermore, they must also outline the minimal support period, which cannot be less than 2 years from a game's launch in Brazil. So basically, games like Concord would have a very interesting time with that. So basically, what will happen if a game does go offline? Well, publishers must inform consumers about any termination of services no less than 180 days in advance, notifying players in the game itself, or official social channels, and through other means. Again, that makes it very, very interesting for some of these games we've seen recently that had extremely short lifespans. Like live service games like Concord, like Highguard, was that the one that Jeff Keighley was hyping a lot? I think it was, yeah. Some of the games like that have been really, really hyped and then disappeared in far less than 180 days. And it's probably going to be more, they're going to follow this exact same fate, especially with Sony recently saying they're doubling down on live service. How would that work? Are those games going to basically be forced to be kept online in this kind of zombie state for at least 180 days more just to meet this deadline in Brazil? Or are they just going to not even bother and call the market in Brazil just like a lost cause? Which, like, here's the thing about the Brazilian market, right? It's definitely not a very rich market, but it's a big market still. It's Brazil is something like, what, 300 something million people? I'm gonna actually look it up. Brazil population, sorry, 213 million. 2.6% of the global population. That's not small. And obviously a lot of that is just like people who don't even care about gaming, but you have to imagine a lot of that is the gaming market, and the market is only going to be gaining as Brazil is very slowly kind of, you know, becoming richer, more developing, increasing really in its kind of trade and international cooperation in that regard. So it is a growing market, and I highly doubt that they're just going to leave that market. Then the other way they could be looking at it is just saying, look, it's we are going to be fined, but it's going to be worth it, right? Because the fines for these it's basically just fines. That's what they're saying. They don't say how much, but it's just going to be fines. Are those companies just going to consider these kind of fines? Oops, sorry, knocked my mic there. Like, are these companies just going to consider these fines one of the calculated risks when doing business in Brazil or any other areas of the world that adopt similar laws? I was going to say, yeah, we're just going to fine with the fines, basically, and it's going to kind of keep them there. Some companies very much have that strategy, right? They kind of operate as usual, and then for any kind of fines because they violate rules in, you know, the EU or whatever, or especially in California as well. California has been also really going into consumer protection recently. Those fines are just basically daily operation costs for the company at that point, and they don't care because they're so rich that it doesn't really matter for them. So it's very, again, it's interesting. It's very difficult to see where it's going to go from here, and if this thing is even going to become a law or not. But if anyone's new, if you're constantly wondering why I'm constantly looking up in the top right, that's because that's where I have my chat. And a level up says, still sad that Stop Killing Games failed. I mean, technically it has not failed. The whole thing is still going, but basically both in the US they said, yeah, no thanks, and in the EU they also, again, very surprisingly said no thanks. They said that the organizers, they're gonna fund it further, try give it another crack. They're constantly like reiterating there are other avenues we can do to pull this off. Like, they're very concrete about the fact that it's like an inevitability that's going to pass. Those are very big, bold claims, and I'm very doubtful about a lot of them, but I'm, you know, kind of hopeful that it is going to happen. Again, for me, just the biggest surprise is the EU. But that's just, again, it appears just to be the Ubisoft lobby, from what I've heard. the Ubisoft lobby has been so strong that they are the ones that have kind of really been pushing the EU not to kind of change the stance in that. But again, that's also I heard. That's the kind of rumors circulating right about now. But it would make sense. I mean, they are by far the biggest gaming company in Europe, and like any of the other big guys have been like very good on that front, very supportive on that front. I mean, obviously you have CD Projekt with GOG, so that kind of is very informative about where their stand is on that. You have like Larian is from, I can't remember, like Czech, Danish, somewhere. They've also been like very supportive of this kind of stuff as well. I can't remember if someone can remind me where Larian are from, but so I can't really remember. Love it, absolutely. Yeah, that surprised me as well. I thought the EU would be at least good for that. Yeah, I'm extremely kind of disappointed in that regard, but hey, maybe in the future. It also shows that the EU isn't always right. We kind of, especially for people who are very interested in tech but live outside of the EU or Europe in general, always love talking about how amazing, how base the EU is. You know, I remember back when I used to watch like a Dwan show a lot over an LTD channel, how like whenever any kind of new EU law about forcing Apple to do this, forcing Google to do this, forcing like game developers to do this, that, or whatever, like hardware manufacturers to do this, they're like praising a lot. Like, yeah, from the outsider's perspective, if you're living in such a corporate hellhole like the States, or if you at least live close enough to it, like the LNG guys over in Canada, that you see a lot of the hellishness of it firsthand, the EU might seem like the best thing ever, but again, it's not always right. It's not always right. And also, as another kind of point of clarification, because I know a lot of you guys will be wondering, for a lot of the laws that apply to the EU, they basically also apply to the rest of Europe, because like I was talking about earlier, companies cannot be bothered to have one set of rules for here and one set of rules for there. So if you look at countries that aren't part of the EU, UK, Norway, like all of the ECC and EFTA in Switzerland, you see that you still have like attached bottle caps, for example, right? Because companies don't want to have one set of bottles for the UK, but then if you just cross the border from like Northern Ireland into Ireland, they don't want to have a different bottle, basically. And the same thing is for tech. Sometimes, you know, there probably will be, and there's some examples I'm probably not aware of, where companies are just so dead set on whatever kind of bad behavior the EU's going against, that they're still kind of keeping the worst version of the product, the less consumer friendly version of product in those non-EU countries. But I'm not actually aware of any examples off the top of my head. So if anyone can think of anything like that, where there is still that kind of difference between something that's EU enforced, but then companies still keeping like their old, worst version of it in this couple of countries in Europe that aren't part of the EU, do let me know. I actually can't think of anything off the top of my head. I actually can't, like, because I'm like 99% sure that new like Switch 2 models are going to be coming to non-EU European markets. I'm actually trying to think. I can't. Obviously, like I talked about earlier, the example of the iPhone, Type-C everywhere, didn't restrict that. I don't think there is Nutri-Scores outside of the EU, but I don't think Nutri-Scores are even EU mandated. I think it's just a thing a lot of EU countries started doing. But again, don't quote me on that. And for all of you non-Europeans out there wondering what on earth is a Nutri-Score, don't worry about it. Don't worry your peaceful mind about it. Okay, yeah, I actually can't think of any examples of that right now. But okay, the final kind of part of this entire puzzle is where Xbox kind of come into all of this. Now, Xbox, at first, I was extremely mad at Xbox for the fact that days after this, after this whole announcement from PlayStation, they went ahead and announced all of the firings and stuff like that. It seemed very dumb from a PR perspective, because your biggest opponent, your biggest enemy, right, in this whole console war is just committing PR seppuku right in front of you, and then decide to join in on the action instead of just watching the show from afar. But the more I thought about it, the more this entire saga with Xbox recently has probably been more of a win for the new CEO. I believe, I still can't remember her name, Asher something, I believe. I believe the more it has been a win for Asher. Because sure, when you first hear that like thousands of people are losing their jobs, that like studios are moving or whatever, that doesn't sound too great. But then you think about it, like Xbox has been criminally mismanaged. She's talked about how some decision things go through 14 layers of management. And then you decide to strip that away, which again, mostly just sounds like a lot of managerial work that's being made redundant. None of those studios are being shut down, right? So the studios that have experienced huge reductions in headcount are not being shut down. They aren't doing the thing where a studio made a successful game and just killing it, like under Phil Spencer. And the studios that they are letting go, that they're basically just studios that are going independent again, that aren't part of the Xbox family. The studios exist, and they continue to hold a right to all of the original IP that studio created. So more than anything, again, the headlines might seem scary at first, but I think in the end it was kind of a win for Xbox. The fact that they've been able to put that away, the fact they've been able to carry out the biggest restructuring in the history of the company, with not a single studio going over, not a single game being cancelled, studios that people really like being given like a new lease on life by being able to continue the work that they already been doing with the IPs that they already have. And also Minecraft, which has been like criminally underfunded and just been going in a very weird direction, that is going to be answering, like all of Mojang is going to be answering directly to Asher now. Again, I really hope that's her name. I'm not just like misremembering that. We'll be going directly to her, and also apparently so much of the money, because obviously Minecraft is Xbox's biggest cash cow. It's not even close. But a lot of money has been like being funneled to other projects, and apparently that's like not going to be a thing anymore. The Minecraft money is staying with Minecraft. It's staying with Mojang to fund that production, so we get more than a couple of items per pack, and that hopefully, fingers crossed, we finally get an end update in the human lifetime before World War VI or whatever finally wipes us off for good. Traffic light health, maybe. What's traffic light health? Oh, you mean just Nutri-Score? Okay, yeah. Yeah, Nutri-Scores are like I know some people love them, some people hate them, and just kind of the thing is that can be very, very misleading, because it's not, well, again, depending on how your brain works and depending on what you kind of look at when you buy food, it's kind of it kind of be a good thing or a bad thing. So it's basically like a rating of how healthy food is, but it doesn't compare to all food overall. It compares to food in that same basic category, right? So if you have a pack of cornflakes or cornflakes like products from a company that's rated like a I don't even know what the lowest score is. I believe like an F. Then it's like the lowest, least healthy version of all cornflakes, basically. So even if a food is inherently very unhealthy, like I don't know, what's like some super like unhealthy food? Yeah, sure, let's just go with like a Coca-Cola or whatever. Then the healthiest Coca-Cola, which still won't be very healthy for you, will still be given an A, which a lot of people might understand as if it's saying that it's a very healthy drink for you. In reality, no, it's still very unhealthy, but it's just like the healthiest of all the Cokes, basically. That's what it means. Minecraft 2 before GTA 6. I mean, maybe. I need to figure out how to turn it off. There's this new thing in YouTube live chat for creators that it like auto translates every message, and the auto translating is awful. So I have to basically hover over every message to translate it, which is such a so annoying. I need to figure out how to turn it off. You'd think with YouTube having access to Google Translate, the translations would be good, but no, they're absolutely awful. And also, I just want to read the original. It's one of those things that YouTube does not seem to understand. Just because, YouTube seems to think that if you have YouTube set up in any other language other than English, that you don't know English. Even though it's literally the most spoken language in the world and the second language of pretty much everyone. They did the same with the auto dubbing, turning on those AI auto dubbed videos in your language. No, I can speak English. I just have YouTube in a language other than English because why not? But let me actually listen to the original audio. Let me see, do not the original title as well. I remember when they started translating titles and descriptions as well. What is so hard? Why can't YouTube understand that people do actually know English? We're going to a lot of tangents here. Level Up. It is translating to Polish. Again, I want to keep YouTube in Polish, but I also want to... There's probably some setting to do that. If not, maybe a plugin. I don't know if they fix it or not, but I do actually have a plugin in Chrome just to turn off the auto dubbing. Maybe auto dubbing is off by default now. I don't know. I just have a plugin and I just forgot about it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not even going to try and read that in German. I'm just going to show how awful my German is. Okay, what were we talking about before we went on another tangent? Ah, yes. We're talking about Xbox. So, the question everyone has on their mind right now is if Xbox is going to follow suit or if they're just going to abandon as well. One thing that they have been teasing is a system to basically take physical games and digitize them. The system's probably way off, a ways away, I mean, but from the way it kind of sounds like is right. You have a physical version of a game as such. You can take your disc, right, and you still have the disc. You insert it into your console. You then basically get a copy of that game, added into your account. And then you have the copy, so you no longer have to use a disc. But then the version on the disc still works fine. You can use it whenever. You can have it forever. You can resell it, and it's still gonna work. But you still have that original, but you still have that digital key as well. If it's so inconvenient to you to grab a disc from a shelf and then insert it into your console because you're an absolutely spoiled zoomer. That sounds pretty cool, and it sounds like the best of both worlds. If that is going to actually become a reality, who knows? Who knows? But obviously, the main thing that everyone has been wondering about is if Xbox are going to actually also do this for Project Helix. There have been some rumors that Project Helix will be digital only. However, given what Sony have just committed to, it wouldn't surprise me if there is a digital only prototype of Helix out there. They are desperately trying to force in an optical drive in there, or at least find again some other physical format like cartridges or whatever to keep it going, because they just seen what happened when you try to when you try to go away from physical media, like what PlayStation has been doing. And I do believe in Project Helix. I really do believe in this new leadership of Xbox. They haven't really committed any major mistakes thus far. Again, at first I thought that this whole like major wave of like restructuring just after the Sony announcement is like the very first thing they did kind of off. But again, the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's kind of probably the best of the situation. Like definitely the best thing they could have done in the situation to de-bloat the company. I don't know. I'm so curious. I'm so curious what the conversations are at. I'm curious what the conversations are at Sony about it, but I don't think I care. My bigger thing is like what the conversations are over at Xbox, because they've been trying to win people back so hard, and they will essentially win the next generation by just not messing it up as much as Sony did, and actually including some form of a physical media in it. Again, maybe the future is not optical. Blu-rays are amazing. You can have 50 gig Blu-rays, right? So you can have, you know, games in like 2 to 3 discs, maybe 4 discs for some larger games. Technically 128 gig Blu-rays kind of exist, but they are a lot more niche. Maybe they just switch over to cartridges or some kind of like weird flash solution, though maybe that wouldn't be the best right now, given the price of flash going up so much because of all of the shortages. Obviously there is no there is no shortages of optical media right now. There's no shortage of discs, so that could be something. Yeah, no, Charlie says I like the analog feelings of disc as well. Same. Like I cannot understand people who do not like it. Again, it's like I get the convenience, but it's just there's something so nice about having something to put on a shelf, right? And just the feeling of it. Again, it's one of those things that's very difficult. Obviously it's not optimal. And as humanity, as a society, we have always kind of longed for maximum optimization for everything. And in a world that is just about optimization, physical media makes absolutely no sense. However, the recent wave of like a return to physical media in other mediums other than games, right? In music, which being the biggest. In movies, it's been like slightly catching up as well. It's been slightly increasing on the increase there. Now we just have to need the same wave in console gaming, well specifically, but also in PC gaming as well. Like PC gaming is by no means innocent of all of this. Like so many games are actually still digital only on PC, even if they come physically on console, right? So that's extremely annoying. So many games I've seen, so many games I want to try out. The annoying part is you can only get a physical copy. I mean, ironically enough, given everything that Sony has been doing on console, and then on PC it's digital only. So that is a whole other can of worms right there. Like with like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, for example, the remake recently. That's one that really annoyed me. Wow, Battlefront 2 had installed this? That was in 2016. I'm kind of surprised. Like I would have assumed that by 2016, EA of all people would have quit optical and just had like a fully digital game. But no, that's actually kind of impressive. Shame the game itself was apparently awful and rid of microtransactions. But hey, good on EA for at least giving people the discs. Like who cares if it's 5? At least you still have it. At least you still have something to put on the shelf. At least you can have, you know, something, anything to feel even when the game itself goes down the toilet. I wonder what's the record for like an actual proper release of a game with just like the most CDs. Let's actually Google that. I'm actually curious now. PC game that came on most discs. Riven, sorry, from the Mist series that came on 5. Obviously, you had a lot of the games from like before CDs became a thing, from the floppy era. That came like 15 floppies, 21 floppies, or whatever. So, someone here says Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis came on 11 discs. Legend of Kyrandia, whatever that is, came on 11 discs. Oh yeah, GTA 5. I believe it's in the other room, but yeah, the PC version of GTA 5 came on 7 DVDs. So obviously it takes a while, but at the same time, I mean, so many people still have like such slow internet. It's probably the same speed whether you're installing and you have to kind of take one disc out, add another disc in, versus just downloading it by yourself, just downloading it normally. But yeah, I think we'll be ending this stream here. I still have so much work to do, and only now I can actually start doing it because of just the fact it's actually kind of cool enough now that I can actually record and not literally be boiled alive by all my lamps here. Especially because when I normally record, I also like have to turn off all of my fans and cooling here as well. So yeah, while it's still somewhat cool, and before the big match, I guess I still have to do some recording. Let me know if you guys are watching and who you guys are cheering on. I know who I'm cheering on, and it's very much not the country I'm living in right now. I know, to be fair, I believe it's like most of the world. I believe the only country that's cheering for England is England. I don't know. Like like I can't think of any other country that hates Norway so much that they would be cheering for England. I'm trying to think if there's like anyone Norway has such beef with that would actually cheer for England over them. But again, I can't think of any. But anyway, that is going to be about it. Thank you guys so much, and as usual, if you can recommend ideas for what we can do in future episodes of Weekends of Avrona, please do let me know. The whole point of it is that it's supposed to be very kind of like essentially kind of not a variety show, but at least have something different every week. Sometimes it's news and discussions, kind of like today. Last week we did like an Amazon build for like a Steam machine equivalent. I believe one really fun one I did a while back is like the Wooting, building the Wooting keyboard. That was a lot of fun because it's just, you know, adding all of the switches in, adding all of the keys in. It's just so nice and relaxed, and you know, just get to talk to you guys about it. So I've been like trying to convince Wooting to do something similar, like maybe like another company as well. So yeah, if you have any other ideas, do let me know, and hopefully the schedule will be improving as well. There will be something. I'm saying it right now. There will be some things happening in August that may disrupt the schedule, but hopefully it's going to be still pretty fine, especially when it comes to Weekends of Avrona. Oh, someone says Sweden. Yeah, I think like they've kind of. I know they really dislike each other, but like I assume they've also patched it up, given how closely they work together nowadays. I don't know if anyone's watching from Sweden. Do you hate Norway enough to be rooting for England in today's match? Please do let me know. But anyway, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. If you did, then remember to subscribe, like, whatever, and I see you all in whatever I make next. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
we pray.